Good evening. You are tuning in to AWANI Tonight with me, Cynthia Ng. Historic bipartisan deal. What does this mean for the rakyat? And we take a closer look at ventilation in curbing the spread of COVID-19. That's coming up. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong welcomed efforts to realize a bipartisan approach that marks the shaping of a new political landscape in the country. His Majesty also called for the end of disputes among politicians and to stop wagering the fate of the people in their efforts to further their own agenda.
Kerjasama bipartisan antara semua pihak yang bakal membentuk lanskap politik baru dan membawa perubahan dalam sistem pentadbiran negara. Kematangan seperti inilah yang didambakan oleh seluruh rakyat Beta. Hanya menerusi perpaduan, kesepakatan dan kebersamaan yang erat bagaikan sebuah keluarga Malaysia sahajalah kita akan dapat mengharungi pelbagai cabaran dan dugaan yang bakal ditempuh.
The King was speaking during the royal address to kickstart the fourth session of the 14th Malaysian Parliament sitting today. His Majesty also urged MPs to focus on battling COVID-19 and to protect the country and people from its threat. Today marks a milestone in Malaysian politics as a memorandum of understanding on bipartisan cooperation was signed between the government and Pakatan Harapan.
Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said the move was in the spirit of Keluarga Malaysia and in line with the Yang di-Pertuan Agong's royal address at the Parliament session today. The MOU covers several aspects such as strengthening the COVID-19 plan, governance transformation and parliamentary reforms, as well as ensuring the independence of judicial institutions, the sanctity of the Malaysia Agreement 1963 and the setting up of a steering committee.
With the MOU signed to ensure bipartisan cooperation, what does it mean for new era of politics here in Malaysia? And how will the dynamic be between the government and opposition moving forward? We speak to political analyst Mujibu Abdul Muiz.
The opposition will still play their vital role in maintaining or what we call the check and balance role as a what we call opposition in the parliament, but this MOU may lead to another dimension of our political collaboration. As I said before, since neither party is expected to have a comfortable majority in the near future, so cross-party cooperation is the way forward for us now. This will create some kind of win-win situation compared to the practice of winners take all or zero-sum games earlier that have been dominated our political scene. So the support is given to the government still in the high mandate, but in the same time, some agendas demanded by the opposition parties are also made and will be entertained by the government because of this confidence and supply.
Now, with this agreement signed, how will this new development benefit the rakyat? Mujibu said with the promise of political stability, the country can focus all its attention to better fight COVID-19 and revive the faltering economy.
At the short run, of course, we are going to have a political stability, which is very needed in this particular time, because what have we seen in the past 17 months before, that the political stability is the catalyst for the instability, for the problematic situation that we are facing now. So basically when this happens, so the rakyat will get the political stability, and of course by political stability, government may have time to focus in this very short period of time, simply spending all of the energy, all of the ideas in order to fight to end this pandemic COVID-19 and of course to rectify the economic problem. And of course, not only the rakyat will see that the government will able to set aside all political differences, and of course, for the long run, we will able to see that the country may ensure that this recovery plan will run in a very smooth way and, of course, in a very inclusive way.
It is being dubbed a historic deal which will end decades of winner-takes-all politics. But will it? Tonight on Consider This, we ask our guests about the much-talked-about MOU between PM Ismail Sabri and Pakatan Harapan, and that's coming up right after AWANI Tonight. Visitors to Langkawi do not need to take COVID-19 tests before heading to the island. Langkawi reopens this Thursday to fully vaccinated individuals in a first travel bubble program in Malaysia.
In announcing the SOPs, Tourism, Arts and Culture Minister Datuk Seri Nancy Shukri also said that private vehicles would be banned from entering the island. Visitors are encouraged to use travel agencies instead. She added that the Langkawi travel bubble will serve as a benchmark for the opening of more tourist destinations in the country. While travellers via land transport from other states need to apply for police permission letters, those who fly into Langkawi are exempted from the rule.
We will take a quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back. As more economic sectors reopen, the question of ventilation comes to mind, especially in industries where enclosed spaces would be a concern, such as gyms and indoor sports centers. The Health Ministry has recently announced that ventilation guideline is in the works. But how do we ensure that premises can and will provide good ventilation? Public health specialist Dr. Muhammad Farhan Rusli weighs in.
Now, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to ensure that you have good ventilation, because even at the start, right, a lot of the buildings in the country have inadequate infrastructure, and ventilation was not actually an emphasis that was actually done from the get-go. So it's going to be really difficult, especially when you talk about opening of gyms, to ensure that you have good ventilation, especially when you talk about gyms that are in shopping malls and all these places where they don't have access to windows. So there's a lot of things that you have to look at. So as much as we would like to say that policy is being delivered and policy is being written, we have to also see how far of the policy can we actually implement.
Dr. Farhan said premises must allow entry only to the fully vaccinated and provide air monitoring devices.
Now, usually when we talk about ventilation itself, it's not only just ventilation per se. It's actually about how we conduct ourselves in that enclosed environment. Who are the people who are in that environment? And as we move towards endemic, and we would hope that people who enter a certain type of premise are all fully vaccinated, and the vaccination is at par of what is being implemented, we hope to see that the risk of getting COVID is extremely drop and low. So that's what we are trying to push for. But people need to know what is it that they want to look at before they actually enter a premise. So we used to have the sound bars in front of construction sites to tell people that what is the noise decibel that's being done in that area. So that is an indicator for someone to complain whether the noise is loud or not. So perhaps we will actually need monitoring devices to tell people whether indoor air quality is good or not.
Now, vaccination alone may not be enough to protect us against the virus and its many variants. Public health specialist Dr. Farhan Rusli says the onus is on the public to remain vigilant and make smart decisions.
But now the onus is not only on the responsibility of premise owners, but also on the people to actually evaluate whether they are entering a place of risk. So, for example, if you are a person who already has comorbidities such as diabetes, hypertension, and all these other things, do you want to enter a place where you are not sure about the quality of the ventilation, such as tight-knit spaces, such as nightclubs? Do you want to expose yourself in an environment where it's crowded and overly packed? Now, the onus later will be that the premise owner will not be responsible if you are infected with COVID. So as we move towards these endemic phases, and as people try to cope with making sure ventilation is now good and all these things, it's up to the people to be able to actually take care of themselves and make informed and smart decisions whether or not they are actually safe to enter those type of premises.
On to international news, Australia begins its vaccination drive for children. Around 1 million adolescents aged 12 to 15 will be offered COVID-19 vaccines as Australia secures more supplies to speed up inoculations. Australia bought an additional 1 million doses of Moderna vaccine from the European Union on Sunday, while vaccine swap deals with Britain and Singapore were completed over the last 2 weeks. New South Wales, the most affected state, said that the pace of vaccinations had slowed as first dose coverage neared 80%. The state reported 1,257 locally acquired cases on Monday. New Zealand's largest city, Auckland, will remain under a strict lockdown for at least another week to snuff out small outbreaks of the Delta variant. After that, Auckland will move from level 4 to level 3, which means restrictions will be eased slightly, but offices, schools and public venues would still stay shut. The country reported 33 new cases on Monday, all in Auckland. About 34% of its 5.1 million population has been fully vaccinated so far. Vietnam is speeding up its COVID-19 vaccination program. More than 1 million doses were administered over the weekend, making it a record high. This as the government aims to remove lockdowns in major cities by end of September. In the capital, Hanoi, which has been under a lockdown since July, health workers are working through the night to give vaccine jabs. About 80% of the city's 5.7 million adults have received at least one shot. It aims for 100% by the end of the week. However, the country's overall vaccination rate still remains low, with only 4% out of its 98 million population fully vaccinated. A shortage in supplies has made Vietnam slow down its vaccination program in recent months, when the Delta variant of the virus spread in the country, infecting over 600,000 and killing more than 15,000 people in just 4 months. Israel carried out a series of airstrikes in the Gaza Strip early Monday, saying it was responding to the launches of rockets. The airstrikes, it claimed, targeted facilities used by Hamas for military training, including a weapons storage factory. There were no immediate reports of casualties. The Israeli army said it was the third consecutive night of rocket fire that they intercepted from Gaza, and there were no casualties on their side either. Tensions have worsened by an escape by 6 Palestinians from an Israeli prison last week and ongoing difficulties in reaching a long-term ceasefire between Israel and Hamas following the war in May. And that is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news updates on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and Astro AWANI app. I'm Cynthia Ng. Thank you for watching.